Lauren, welcome to the Expansion and Evolution Project. I am so happy to have you here with me today. Thank you again for making time to be in this space with me.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and what you currently do?
Okay, so my name is Lauren. I live in Cincinnati, Ohio, and I recently left a career teaching special education and started my own business. It's called DIY Farmhouse, and I go into people's homes and help renovate and make them beautiful. And I also got my real estate license, so I am hoping to do that as well.
You are so talented with that. It's you and I, well, the listeners know, like we know each other from being neighbors when you lived in Chicago. And I remember you telling me, and I still think of you when I see this, like the boob light, like the light that looks like a boob.
Yes.
And I remember you saying, "Oh yeah, I can just I will switch it out." And I'm like, "How do you switch it out?" You're like, "It's easy peasy." I'm like, "What?" But your dad was an architect, right? Was he an
He
architect?
was. Yeah, that's a good
Grew
memory.
up- I do. I remember my mind is weird. I remember really random stuff. But you grew up like being comfortable around tools and all that
Mhm.
stuff, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And I have loved your journey watching where you are now because, and I said this on the last episode too, where when I came up with this project, I had people in mind already of who I wanted to chat with. And you were one of the people I had in mind. There were like
Yeah.
two or three people. I'm like, I'm going to reach out to her. And what I love is the fact that you had a career in teaching and then your passion was
Mhm.
in like just upgrade. I mean, you did all kinds of upgrades in all your homes that you've lived in because you've moved several times.
Yes, a
Um,
lot.
so yeah, yeah. And so I love that. I would love to talk about the journey of being a teacher, establishing, because you've moved several times, and so establishing this teaching practice or the career, and then going into what you do now. Like, how did that look like? What was that thought process? How did you even think about, I think I want to do something different? What did that look like for you?
So I feel like I've always wanted to have my own business. Like
Mhm.
that entrepreneurship really resonated with me. I loved doing things. We've owned 5 houses in 10 years, and
Mhm.
that's a lot. We've moved a lot. We've had two in Chicago. We lived in Minnesota. Now had two in Cincinnati. We just moved about a year ago. And I just have loved making over every space that we've lived in and just making it my own. The houses we've lived in are beautiful and they are move-in ready and nothing was wrong with them. It's just like putting my own little touch
Yeah.
on it. So basically, I started doing all of that and loved it. And then really people were encouraging me, my friends mostly, you should do this for other people.
I remember
Oh, I
telling
don't
you that. I was like, can you
know.
start up a course and walk people through how to change like a light fixture? Can you do that? Like,
Right.
remember, like people needed that experience and you
Yeah.
just like with all your tools, just bing, bang, boom, getting it all done. Like it was amazing.
Yeah. I've had a lot of people tell me that you should start a YouTube channel so
Yeah.
people can learn from you. And that's actually why I started my name was DIY Farmhouse. So Houseman is my maiden name, which is spelled
Oh, I didn't know that.
Hausman. And that's where I came up with DIY Farmhouse because originally it was just to show other people what they can do. I was following a lot of other Instagram influencers who do the same sort of thing and really just very impressed by them and what they were able to do. And then in Minnesota, I worked only like a couple of times for this woman who I'll give her a shout out. Her name's DIY Project Junkie. She's in Minnesota. And I was just so impressed with her and how she does this for a living and was going into people's homes and renovating them. And I'm like, can I do that? Like, I don't know. I just definitely felt limiting beliefs about
Mhm.
moving forward with that.
Mhm.
And I loved education. And that was the other thing. Like, I still love education. I think I'm an expert in education. And so leaving that field to do something that I think I'm really good at, but not necessarily a complete expert in, like, I still have a lot to learn. That I think was the challenge. So I do think that education and teaching gives me a lot of skills, right?
Hmm.
Being able to think creatively and problem solve, and I have to communicate with my clients. And obviously, I had to communicate with parents. So, like, it goes together.
Yeah.
And I don't even know where I was going with all that,
That's
but
okay. No, that's totally fine. That kind of is perfect because that circles into this question I tend to ask, and we tend to go into a career that speaks to our gifts and what we want to do. And when we're wrapping up high school and we're thinking like the next step, it's natural if we have the opportunity to choose for ourselves. I know there's some families where maybe the parent, the son or the daughter is following in their parents' footsteps to become a doctor or a lawyer or take over a practice or whatever. But if we have the choice to do something, we tend to follow in the path of what lights us up and what feels good and what we want to do. And then we get in this career and then we're like, wait a minute, there it doesn't necessarily fill me up like this passion project I have on the side. And so I think it's inspiring to watch people who are starting to pivot and lean into that as opposed to staying in a safe position. And
right.
there's definitely like a lot to be said to be in a safe position in neurological or rather nervous system regulation. You have how much money you're making if you're in a salaried position to step away from that and follow your passion. And it's just, I think it's incredible. And so I love the fact that you did that. What did like when you started thinking about, okay, I think I want to do this, were there any skepticism that came from family? Like you're crazy to lead this career. Like I want to know what that looked like and how you moved through it. I know you have a very supportive husband,
Yeah.
but I want to know like what was that skepticism and how were you able to move through it and not fall back and listen to it?
Yeah, my family in general, my parents and everyone is supportive. I just heard a lot of voices saying, you can always go back to teaching.
Yeah.
And that's what they would say. And I know they didn't mean anything by that,
Like, are
but
you viewing that as, oh, I'm not going to be successful at what I'm doing, so
correct.
I always fall back at teaching? Got it.
Yeah. That's how I
Yeah.
like interpreted
Interpret
it.
it.
And maybe
Yeah.
that's not how they meant it, but I'm like, no, I'm not going back to teaching because I am going to be successful.
Yeah.
And
Love that.
or the comments like it really takes 3 years to get your feet wet and like to
Hmm.
be successful, and most small businesses go under in three
Yeah.
within 3 years, those comments. And
Yeah.
I'm like, that's okay, I don't know.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work out, that's fine too. Honestly, I'm like doing this work and I'm like, this is backbreaking work that I'm
Yeah. I've
doing.
seen
Like I
videos.
am
Yeah.
exhausted
Hmm.
on a day. Like I really am very bad about stopping and eating. I will work through an 8 to 10 hour shift and not eat. And
How do you
that is
feel?
hard.
How do you feel at the end of the day, working that 8 to 10 hour shift, doing what you love and not fulfilling yourself with the needs of eating? How do you feel at the end of
Right.
the day of that versus at the end of the day of teaching and having some challenging kids or families? Are they the same type of exhaustion or is it like a different type of exhaustion?
100% different.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like I am frustrated when I get home still, if it's been a long day. Like you said, my husband is very supportive. So he knows that if I haven't eaten, he needs to have food ready for me. That's really nice because he's you get very hangry, which is true. But other than that, it is a different type of exhaustion. I'm physically exhausted,
Mhm.
but like mentally so happy.
Yeah.
And yeah, just having the flexibility is huge. And even this summer, I put my kids in a camp Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday so that I can go on a
Hmm.
project or work for a client. And it's been so nice, like
Yeah.
being able to have that flexibility and not have to really be somewhere at a certain time if I don't have to be.
Oh
So
yeah. Yeah. Like I call it the slow roll mornings where like you can just roll out of bed and take your time and not have to be rushed to be somewhere because you're creating your own schedule, you're making things for yourself.
right.
And I I yeah, that's just amazing. What was your life like when you were the teacher and then compared to what it is now? Like what was your mindset? What did things feel like? Did you find yourself stressed out? Did you find yourself spread thin? I'm just curious, comparing what your life was like then to like when you follow your desires and how it is now.
I feel like I've had a great life and it
Yeah.
is I am very happy with both careers. I
Mhm.
loved, like I said, I love teaching. It's just a different type of exhaustion and
Mhm.
mentality. And like when I get home, having worked with kids with needs all day, I
Mhm.
come home and to be quite honest, my kids all have needs. Like not
Yeah,
every child has needs, right? But like my
totally.
three are they are very needy. We I and my children have ADHD, and so therefore we get dysregulated very easily, and it
Mhm.
is a lot. And so when I come home from working, building something or whatever it is, I don't feel like I was mentally exhausted
Mhm.
from with children.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, I relate to that 1,000%. Being like a speech therapist, working with kids,
Right.
and using all your energy like with these kids, especially I actually just worked with a little boy who was melting down because he didn't like the rules of the game that were like the rules of the game, and he wanted to come up with his
Right.
own rules. And so having holding space for that, and then coming home and working and being with your own kids and needing to hold
Right.
space for all their emotions and what they need. I totally 1,000% relate to that. What advice would you give to anyone who is having this? I call it the pings in your heart. Like there are these desires in your heart that's pinging at you to like, let's look into that. Like, what would be some tips that you would give someone who'd be in a similar situation?
I feel like find your why for why you want to do that and find your why not. So I feel like I knew my why. I love doing it and it fills me up, but I couldn't really answer the why not. Like, why wasn't I moving forward with it? Why wasn't I starting my business
Mm,
years ago when I was getting into this,
right.
a decade ago, really? Listening to you, listening to other people say you should do this. So I think getting over that
Hmm.
big hurdle. But then also, I feel like find people that are going to support you and build you up and don't listen to the voices that are not.
Yes.
Because I'm trying to think of the book. It's probably not going to come to me quickly, but there is a great book that just talks about how really you need to be listening to certain voices and that
Hmm.
other people are putting limiting beliefs on you. I think
Yes.
it's Think Again. It might be Think Again by Adam Grant.
Mm.
Um, and just people's perceptions, like they don't want you not to succeed. They just have these expectations that people are going to fail. Does
Or
that
it's
make
almost
sense? Like,
like they you succeeding is a sign that they're not, or they're not listening to their own desires, and then you listen to your own desires as a reminder that they're not subconsciously, and then reacting from that place.
yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I love how you're saying find the people that will support you. That's so true. I want to circle back. I saw so I to everyone I interview in the series, I get the questions ahead of time, and you were
Hmm.
kind of like preparing, and there was something that you wrote in the answers that I want to circle back. How you worked with a psychic. Psychic. I want to talk about that. It's so fun. So was that like getting more clarity on this decision? And then what did the psychic say to you in regards to this?
So it was actually, I have seen a couple psychics, but it was when I was in Minnesota. I went with a bunch of girlfriends and
Hmm.
it was a very cool event where they had like a numerology report and they
Hmm.
had you get your aura taken, picture taken, and things, really cool things like that. But I had a numerology report done, and it was so disturbingly accurate describing my personality,
Hmm.
which I know you do things like
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
So,
I love it.
and it talked about how I had some anger issues. I'm like, I've never thought that I have anger issues before. I'm sure like maybe I need to get into therapy. That actually triggered me getting into therapy. And then, but they did say like your next career, they said you're going to be done teaching at 36.
Mm.
And I am 37. So I feel like it was pretty close.
Ah.
They said you will leave your teaching career at 36 and your next career will be something very creative and you will have some sort of a platform to showcase like your
Amazing.
creativity.
That's amazing. How long ago?
Yeah.
It was like you were in Minnesota a few years ago, right?
Yeah, I was in Minnesota 3 years
That's
and
right.
then we've been in Cincinnati now for 3 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, so crazy.
Yeah.
And then they said you'll be very successful in your 40s, in your early 40s.
I
So
mean,
years away, but
you're so friggin' talented. Like you guys go follow. Actually, what's your Insta? You have a couple Instagram
I do have
accounts.
two. Yeah.
So
So
one
it's
is,
DIY Farmhouse. It's
yep,
DIY and then farm HAUS.
yeah.
And then my other account is just my name. It's Lauren, Lauren, K as in kite, and then my last name Deutsch, which is hard to spell.
I will
DEUTSCH.
put this all in the show notes, but if you go
Cool.
check out her Instagram page, you did a Harry Potter under the steps in the basement. You
Yeah.
turned it to like the 9 3/4
Platform.
platform,
Yeah.
which was like genius, like so amazing. You're so creative and the way that you're able to execute it and all the details. And I think that's probably why, again, with your teaching, like being able to be creative in your teaching. And then
Mhm.
I think teachers have to be so organized and sequential in how they do things. Like this was like brilliant. And then you also have a website, right?
I do. Yep. Just DIYfarmhouse.com.
And then if people who are not, because you're doing the work physically, like it's people that
Mhm.
are local to you, um,
Right.
would you ever consider consults virtually with people? Is that something that you offer?
I would. I would probably charge for those. I
Of
usually don't
course.
charge for a
Oh,
consultation if it's local and I
yeah.
know that I might be able to do the work.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would. And I've talked to a lot of people, given them my advice, you being
Yeah, you
included.
have it. Yeah. Yeah. Love it.
So yeah,
Oh my gosh, you guys got to check out Lauren. She is amazing. She's so talented. And I'm so glad that you decided to follow those desires because there's this ripple effect that happens, right? When we're in our own passion, we're following our desires, we have this ripple effect that goes beyond our even awareness. So this is amazing. Thank you again for being available for this. I love hearing your journey, and I know you're going to help so many people with your story.
thank you so much for having me. It was so good to see you.
Yes, you too. Bye.
Bye.